Hello, hello, hello. Welcome everyone to this stream today. We have here a very, very special guest, someone whom I look up to very greatly, and someone whom I idolize and who has helped me to get better at chess in a big way. Welcome, Jesse.
Thank you. Happy to be here. Yeah.
Jesse, I wanted to tell you and also the viewers about how I got to know you. And it's such an unbelievable feeling that today I have you here on the stream because I think it was way back in 2012 that I started watching your chess lecture videos.
No, it was earlier than that.
I
I
mean,
remember
it was much
because you,
earlier, but I contacted you in 2012.
no, you contacted me in 2010.
2010.
I think pretty sure. Yeah. Because I remember the day and I remember where I was sitting. And right, I moved later. So yeah, it was about 2010, maybe 2011. Yeah.
Oh, Amruta just shows me the mail that she found. She says it's 2009 when I first
At
wrote to you.
2009. Yeah, 2009. Yeah.
So I actually wrote you in 2009, but the reason why 2012 is in my head, actually, it is by mistake. But so what happened was, I wrote to Jesse saying that I'm a big fan of him. I was listening to his videos on chesslecture.com. And in fact, it was just for you that I asked my dad to get me a lifetime membership of chesslecture.com. And I still
Okay.
have
Yeah.
it, yeah, but I don't think I visit that website anymore. But it was primarily because I enjoyed your lectures so much. And then I wrote to you saying that I would like to learn with you. I would like to train with you at
Right.
some
Right.
point, and somehow we couldn't make it work. I think the fees were high for me, or I couldn't manage it. And then you were so kind that you told me, "Why don't you send me a game of yours? I will analyze it." And at that
Yeah.
point, I sent you my game, and I want to show you that position over here.
Okay.
Uh, so it was my game with Alexander Fomini, and
Uh-huh.
exactly at this moment, I had written that in this position, knight a6, and I said after this move, it seems white cannot anymore claim an advantage.
Right.
And you analyzed on the next day, or some days later, that there's this game between Smyslow and Benko, and
Right.
in which Benko played rook c8 and Smyslow played a beautiful game with rook c1 and then got all his pieces here, and in this symmetrical position he managed to outplay uh, Pal Benko.
Right.
And you said a very important thing, that in symmetrical positions it's very important to have activity, and if you do not have activity, it's very difficult to create it because the pawn structure is symmetrical. And I cannot tell you what a deep impression it made on me. It simply changed my understanding of symmetrical positions. Like, I used to feel it so dull and boring. It was
Right.
so
Right.
equal, and all of that. And just one game, when you analyzed it, it was. That's why I believe that you are a phenomenal teacher, and because I never met you. We never spoke to each other
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
face to face, but yet you made such a deep impression on me. So thank you so much for that.
Oh yeah, thank you for saying that. Yeah, that position. Let's go back to the beginning where Black plays like knight a6.
Yeah.
That position was also important for my own chess development. And so you got the position. I mean, of course, I don't remember it totally your own game, but you got this position,
Uh,
this very one here.
I think I got it till here, and my
Got it.
here I played knight a6, but I wrote in one of the variations of to my analysis
Oh,
that I
right.
should have taken takes, and this is what I should have done. And I had
Right.
written that white cannot anymore claim an advantage.
Right. Right. So, then there was another game that Smith played, same exact position, also won. And both those games, right, really made an impression on me on how to play uh, these kinds of, let's call them technical positions, but also positions where you can put into words why white is a little bit better. And one interesting question I've always had is like, well, what do I actually think? I definitely think white is better, but what do I actually believe? Do I think it's winning? Obviously I don't believe it's winning, but it's a real interesting question of like, well, how bad is it for black? And kind of to my astonishment, since we talked, several GMs, most notably Bashir Lagrave, has actually aimed for this position as black. I was shocked. I was shocked. I was like, you want this position? And instead of playing knight a6, I guess he had done deep computer analysis or whatever. He plays a5, which the old timers would have never, I don't think they would have
Yes,
even
yes.
thought about
Against
that move.
Artemiev. Okay. Yeah, I can see it.
Oh, right. You got it right there. Great. Yeah. And so that was shocking to me. And he held the draw really no problem from this position. So, it's a thing where chess continues to grow and continues to be interesting. And definitely a5, something that wasn't on the old timers' minds, not on mine either. Because I studied this quite a bit and I've used it in training sessions with students before, have them play out the position to get a feel for it. And I never even thought once of a5. It never crossed my mind that a5 was going to be on the agenda there.
But I think
But that's so cool
A5
of a story. Yeah.
doesn't change the fact that this position still remains pleasant for white. But I
Yeah.
think the understanding at highest level is somewhat different. Like even Bashir Lagrave would have had a phase in his life where he would have thought that this position is better for, first he would have thought maybe it's equal, then someone came along and told him that it's symmetrical and activity is important, and then maybe he reached that stage where chess becomes so concrete that it's no longer could
Mm.
be put into like general concepts, and he's like, okay, yeah, I understand white is slightly better perhaps, but if a5 a4 gets me activity, maybe it's good enough to make a draw perhaps.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. Um, I think I'm still at the second stage. I'm still at the second stage myself. That, by the way, that for me also, it was this book that I got called Endgame Virtuoso back in the day. And it really is lightly annotated, but really just loads of Smyslov's games where he's playing positions and games like this. And right, I got a sense of like, oh, yeah, you can really put the screws into people in these positions. And it's honestly, even especially now, the kids are so good at Puzzle Rush and whatever, but they have no patience for these positions and they think it's equal. So, it's a good practical advantage as well.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And Jesse, one of the reasons why I wanted to, have you here on stream was firstly to let people know what amazing achievements you have. You are a grandmaster. You have a PhD in philosophy, right?
Hmm.
And you also are an author of a book called Lisa,
Hmm.
and these are the three, as you say, three main things. Has there been an addition to this, what you have done in the last few years?
Well, definitely, I guess I got to add having a family now. I got two kids, and
Wow.
each of those projects, I will say, was very hard. And they all felt like the next one. Every single one felt harder than the one before. And yeah, especially now, last year with the COVID and the kids and them being home, and oh my God, it's been very difficult. So it's not really on the same it's not the same kind of enterprise having a family, like in the sense that all those other projects that you mentioned were projects of my own, like self-development, and I was mostly in control of it. Whereas the kids, oh my God, I'm not in control of my children. I'm not in control of them at all.
But it's so interesting for me that you kind of set your eyes on something and then you work towards it to achieve it. And this is like, for example, becoming a grandmaster is not
Hmm.
something that happened very naturally to you. Yeah, you had to work really hard for it, and you
Right,
had to put
right,
in a lot of energy. I think you also decided to stay together with GMs in a GM house that
right.
you had, and then you were working with them, and you were playing tournaments, and you were analyzing your games. In fact,
Hmm.
one of the examples that I want to show the viewers here, to just give you an idea of what sort of insane amount of hard work Jesse does, is this article that I published today. And this is a game that Jesse annotated here, and one page, two, three. This is one game, yeah. Four,
This is one game, yeah.
five, six, seven, 8, 9, 10, 11, 16 pages of analysis.
Yeah,
How,
yeah, yeah.
how do you do it? I mean,
Well, more impressive than that, Shagar, is that you transcribed it. Now, listen, chess fans, let me tell you what he did. So, I had posted this a year or two ago on my website, which is not a good website. Don't go to my website. But actually, the reason I did the website is people were asking me. They were like, Jesse, just show us an example of like what it is. What is it you're talking about when you talk about analyzing your games? And this one, not a good game really by either player. So it wasn't like I chose a game where someone played brilliantly. No, I do this, try to do it for every single game. And what I will say is, it's kind of, I don't check it with the
yes.
computer, but I do type it up. I type it up and I'll check certain things with the computer. But I never did what Shagar did, which is to manually put in everything I wrote and all the different variations and stuff. Very difficult. And the part of it that's so hard, I think, to transcribe is you got to realize when I do, let's say I do a couple hours of analysis, and then the next day, what I'll do is I'll come back to certain positions before.
Yes.
So it's not, it'll be percolating in my mind, and it's not like always just in chronological order. I'll be going back. And so I think for someone to read it, it's besides myself. I mean, for myself, it's also kind of hard to read, but for somebody else, oh man, very difficult.
No,
And my handwriting
I
too. I don't
just,
think my handwriting's easy.
yeah, handwriting got a little tough towards the end, because then you were writing much faster. But what I enjoyed tremendously was the thought process. I mean, you were so thorough at everything, that not every move that you made, or every move the opponent made, you were so self-critical about it. I enjoyed it so much that, oh, this move doesn't work, that move, and every variation ended with an evaluation. I mean, that was
Right,
also a lot of discipline, because you could just leave it at something like, oh, this doesn't work, or I don't know what's happening here. But most of the
right,
times you tried to give an evaluation.
right. Yeah, yeah. And that's actually, I just finished this book by your buddy, Agard,
Ah,
this calculation book. And I enjoy books like that. And a lot of people really like to do calculation exercises. But one of the interesting differences between studying, which involves doing practice puzzles and, Puzzle Rush or whatever it is those are always about, white to move and win or white to move and draw or something like that, which is not, dumb or anything. But when you analyze your own games, you are forced to like go down various roads of variations. And first of all, maybe someone is winning. You have no idea. You got to figure it out. But most importantly, you got to get a feel for the position of what's going on. And then, like you said, come to an understanding of what you think the evaluation of the position is. And I think that's one of the biggest hidden secrets about going over your own games is the positions that aren't super sexy, that don't have plus minus or, white to play and win next to them. Those are the positions, honestly, most of the moves you make are going to be in those positions. And those are the ones you got to figure out, like have a sense of what's going on and how to play them.
Yeah, that's true. And that's what builds up. And I think this very example of you analyzing your games is how you take up your aims, in life. For example, if you want to become a grandmaster, just like how you are seeing your games and seeing what's going wrong and where I can improve and stuff, that's how you would take an aim. Like, I want to become a GM. This is what is lacking in me. I should work towards this. Maybe I should play more tournaments. Maybe I should train better. And I think this approach helps you to also identify what you are, what you have to do, and then do those things and achieve your goals. Yeah, is that true?
Yeah. I mean, you have to figure things out, and every process will be different, Just, for example, figuring out that I needed to go over my games was a very difficult process. I was well into my quest to become a GM. And I guess I should back up and say it took, I played chess when I was a kid and then did like the philosophy PhD and stuff. So there was a time in which I wasn't taking chess that seriously. And I came back to it. And so I got to tell you, I tell people all the time to go over their games, but in general, they don't do it. And I understand it's very difficult. They don't do it. It's very hard to do. It takes a lot of discipline. And really, it was just, and honestly, I was at a point of desperation, like I think a lot of chess players are, where they're not improving, and then I was just like, okay, God, I got to sit down with a notebook and figure out what's going on, because I was doing what everyone else did. I'd turn on the computer, I'd look at some openings, I'd do some tactics. And when you hit a hard plateau, and you reach some level where you're not moving past it for a while, it's very frustrating. And that's how I got to that point of being like, okay, now I really have to do it, really have to make progress with it.
Yeah. And I think one of the things which a lot of people ask, and I used to ask when I was not very strong, was how does one analyze his games? Like, it's very good to analyze the games, but what exactly are the ingredients? And I think it would be very nice if we took a game of yours and tried to break down as to what exactly should people be doing. Is it about inquisitiveness? Is it about asking the right questions? Is it just because I think every person has a different way of looking at his own games.
True. Though I will say what's common is like, I've had a number of students who've tried to do this. Most of them have failed. I just want to be clear about it. Most of them have failed on this thing. And what usually happens, what's actually very common, you say everybody's different, but this is where they're the same, is that the first time they analyze their games, they'll come back to me with like one page. They'll come back with one page of a couple questions that they had in the game. It's very common. And so what happens is they only can think of a couple points where they were like, oh, maybe this or that, and so they don't have yet. And that was the case with me as well. I remember very distinctly my first analyses were very short. And it's only later when you're like, oh, there are so many more questions to be asked there. And that art of, posing questions, honestly, will translate in the game too, because you realize that there's so much at stake on every move, so much to think about in every move. And already that there's loads of things you're getting wrong. Already that when you look at the game, both players will be making loads of mistakes, which a lot of players, I think, especially if you ask them right after the game, they'll be like, oh, I just made this one mistake. Oh, this happened. It's a very simple narrative as to what they think happened in the game. And it's usually actually 100% in my experience, it's just not true when you end up looking at it.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I mean. People in the chat are also asking that as intermediate players, we can't judge the crucial positions, best moves, etc., without the engine. There's Karupa Sami who asks how to identify the exact positions where we need to do the analysis. So I think these are the questions which I think they feel like we don't understand what is the point to analyze. Like
Uh-huh.
what needs to be analyzed is the thing. Maybe
Right.
we can have a look at this game of yours.
Well, actually, why don't you go to that first page? Go to that first page of the analysis.
Okay.
And I just tuned in, by the way, to your YouTube channel, so I can see some of the comments too. It's kind
Fantastic.
of fun.
Okay.
And yeah, if we go to that first page, well, you type, or even go to the
Yeah, I'll go
handwritten,
to
or
the
just what I
handwritten.
wrote, just what I wrote. So, for example, on that very first, by the way, everybody, I want to stress this isn't this game that I did. Nothing very special about this game. It's just kind of showing the daily work that I do. And by the way, I do have a goal now. I'm going to be 50 in a little bit, Cigar. I'm going to win. I'm going to win the senior championships and everything, buddy. No one's stopping me.
That's your
Unless,
aim, yeah? That's your aim to become the senior world champion.
well, at the very, I will say this, even U.S. senior will be a big challenge. But so that's a first goal to play in the. Also, they're just nice tournaments. I want to enjoy chess, and I want to, try to improve. And it definitely, if anybody older's out there watching, I will say it gets worse. Like your brain starts, you get a little slower.
Yeah.
So this is what I did. I wrote at the very beginning, I usually do this. I write the narrative of what I think happened in the game. And I'll read it out because I can't even imagine how Sagar wrote this, how he transcribed it. So my memory of this game is that I played a mildly dubious opening, B, then outplayed my opponent, C, threw away the initiative and time pressure, D, could have perhaps created more chances in the rook ending. And then I write, let's test this narrative. And so I think everybody, whether you analyze your games or not, you will have some kind of story at the end of the game about what happened. And that story, it's not wrong, but it usually is very incomplete. There's a lot of hidden stuff that's going on in the game that is unexplored. That then I'm going to go into for the rest of the game. For example, and this is not part of the narrative. Here's an interesting thing. And I wrote the time, and I came 2 minutes late to the board, right? Well, I'll tell you, if I had that 2 minutes, I would have won the game.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. The 2 minutes were decisive in this game. That's the thing. I mean, the chess is a game of little details, and 2 minutes, that was it. If I had 2 minutes, I would have won this game easily.
Maybe this is also what you learn, yeah, from game analysis, that next time I should go to the
Absolutely.
board on time, not go 2 minutes
Absolutely.
late.
There's all kinds of very practical things that you learn about yourself. And in particular, I guess I would call it, you learn like what I call the system of red lights. Like there'll be certain types of situations where a red light will go on during the game, and you'll be like, oh, we've seen this before. I know about this about myself. I know about myself in this situation. Red light. Stop it, buddy. Slow down and think about what's going on.
Yeah. But do you feel like it's a lot about you need to break your own ego, because many people cannot really somehow accept the fact that they can be wrong at so many things. So they are like, okay, I didn't see this one variation, and that's okay. I blundered something, I had a win. But the way I saw your analysis, it was like at every point you were questioning yourself. Where does this objectivity come from? I mean, being so self-critical.
I think a lot of chess players have it. And, one of the things I think has kept me in chess that I think is so beautiful about chess is that everything else I've done outside of chess, there's been so much BS and lying. And what I mean by that is like, it's not necessarily a bad thing that you lie when you're not being a chess player. That's part of not being, that's part of what the world is. And what happens in the real world, right, is you can make mistakes and never understand that you're making mistakes.
True.
Right? And you can see, like, you'll have your own biases. There will be political, there will be tribal, there'll be all kinds of biases that form a lens through which you see the world. And it's very difficult for you to get a check on that, right? There's no one that's going to come to you and say, you're wrong because of X, Y, and Z. They might come to you and say, you're wrong because my lens is different, but that's not helpful. True. Right? That's not helpful. I'm not, your lens, we could talk about your different lens of the world, and that's interesting, but it's not going to help me understand how I might be deeply wrong about how I see the world. So chess is this beautiful thing where you have an argument and a counter argument, and it's the only place in life I've really found where there's that level of purity. So to me, that's the joy of chess right there. I mean, yeah, and you can still analyze your games and be arrogant or over optimistic. It's totally possible. That's something I think that if there are people who are over optimistic in their chess, there are people who are pessimistic, and going over your games won't really change that too much. You might become aware of it, right? You might create habits, for example, where you say, okay, I'm going to check myself before I make this move in full confidence of what's going on. But that part of yourself, you won't entirely eradicate. You'll just gain a sense through chess that there's a recursive truth thing where you can put something out there and somebody's going to try to punch you in the face if you're wrong. They're going to try to punch you in the face anyway. But they're gonna something's coming back at you that's not just some stuff about how you presented in the world and how well you talked and dressed. None of that's gonna matter.
Right. Yeah, that's true. I mean, in that sense, a game of chess is very interesting because your move could either be good or bad. But if you don't use an engine, sometimes you won't even know whether your move was good or bad.
Right.
You're going to just analyze it on your own. But that's what. Let's have a look at this game against Joel Benjamin. This was at the U.S. Championship.
Right. This game was fun. So a little background. Here's a funny thing to talk about. There's different kinds of players, and there's different ways of categorizing them. But I would say for most of my chess career, I've been what I would call the tax man. I've been the tax man, somebody who's about small advantages and trying to understand them. And in any case, what's interesting and fun about this game to me is that prior to this, we were hanging out at the GM house, and I was studying with Josh Friedel. And at that time, it's different now. Josh has now become a much more conservative player. But at that time, every position that we would be analyzing, he would turn into a sacrifice, some kind of wild sacrificial game. He wanted to seize the initiative, and he wanted to trust his tactical ability to get out of any situation that came his way. So let's play two moves. Sagar and I'm gonna get it. What did I get the pronunciation? Sagar.
No, it's fine.
That's how his mom says.
It's fine. I'm just happy you are here. You can call me anything. But NF3, C5, and I would say a normal Jesse move would be either G3 or C4. Yeah, here.
Well, right, and it was. So this is the story. I was so before this, there are two things. I was studying with Josh Friedel, and he was a madman. And then right before, in the preparation for this, we had like a couple hours, a day or so to prepare. And I was rooming at the U.S. Championship with GM Malik Kashian, a guy who's really great. And he was like, oh, yeah, Joel never plays the Sicilian. And I guess if I had really thought about it, I would have said, no, I remember him playing the Sicilian, or I could have checked the database from, years and years ago. But he had played the Sicilian, long ago. But I got to this point and I said, all right, he thinks that I'm not going to play E4. Well, I'm going to play E4. So I played E4, and I didn't know any theory
You
about
didn't know
the
theory.
Sicilian.
Wow.
No, I've seen some games like everybody else, but I didn't know anything special. And so, yeah, he knew more of what was going on, though he, of course, was probably rusty in his, like, let's call it theoretical apparatus or whatever. But right here, I was like, I'm just going to channel Josh Friedel. I'm going to be somebody else for a little bit.
Your what do you call it? The panda, yeah?
Yeah, I don't call him the panda anymore because I think he gets up now. It was like he wouldn't get up in the morning. He would just always be sleeping. So I started calling him the panda.
Yeah.
And we were in China when I first started calling him that. They have that whole panda thing going over there in China. But yeah, so he would never get up. And so I was just like, I'm going to play like a different person this game, and I'm going to play like Josh Friedel. So that's the story of.
Okay.
You know.
So E6 was
Yeah.
what Joel played in this
Joe played, yeah.
game, and then D4. And Jesse, if there's any point where there is something that the chat can think about or they can answer, you can ask, and people would
Sure,
respond. Yeah.
Yeah, we could just leave it up and have them think about it while we chat about whatever you want to talk about.
Yeah. So D4 takes, knight C6, the Taimanov, knight C3. But in spite of not knowing the theory, you went into one of the most, the sharpest lines of the Taimanov.
Yeah. I just had a setup in mind about how to play the position. I had no knowledge at all.
This is
So I
not
think
very common to take, yeah?
No, I was just making it up as I went along. So first of all, I have no idea what I was going to take back. And I just knew that I could play bishop d3, castles, and f4 and try to rip him open. That's what I knew. And I know, the other thing I know about the Sicilian is when you play the Sicilian, you're always in danger. You're always in danger of getting mated, even if the guy plays poorly, And already here, I think I'm doing fine in this position. I don't like what Black did that much. In particular, this position I enjoy. I think I always have the ability to open the position. My development advantage is great. In general, right, with the Sicilian as white, you're going to have a nice opening development advantage. And of course, Black here is banking on center pawns being beautiful. If I was Black, I think I would have thought about E5 and D6 instead of D5, right? Because here I always have the chance to open the position, both with F4, F5, and, some kind of ED at any point.
Yeah.
Yeah, something like that. And that would have just been an interesting game as well, yeah.
So you went knight F6 and you played F4, and you're going ahead with your plan, normal bishop B7.
And he could do all kinds of things here, of course, but he is going to now try to hurt me with, his big fat central pawns with like C5 and D4 and all that business.
Right. And here, you could close in the position with E5, but you didn't choose it, yeah?
Yeah, I had an idea for what he was going to do if he played, because he's going to play C5, which is, again, not a developing move. And opens the a4 e8 diagonal, and I want to play king h1 anyway.
Ah, okay.
That was my sense of the position here.
He went c5, and now he's threatening two things. He wants to play d4 and also take a pawn.
Right, so huge crisis in the position, and maybe we could. This might be an interesting place to leave it for a second to ask what White should do. It's a very interesting position because you can imagine many players here would believe that Black is better, and honestly, I don't know if I've checked it necessarily with the engine. Right, they would believe that Black is better due to all these beautiful pawns and the bishop on b7, the threat of d4. And one thing about Sicilian players, right, it is at the very beginning, they give up so much time for these positional considerations. So while you're thinking about it, I don't want to suggest that White has some knockout win. White definitely has to do something, right? Let's put it this way. White has a little bit of time, and he needs to convert it into something, or else he's just going to be lost.
Yeah. Especially like if I think about, let's say, ed, I just feel like this pawn seems very misplaced, and this is a very nice position somehow.
Right. I like to call that one Federico the F pawn. Right? Because you see him in a lot. You see him in a lot of openings, right? He comes up, King's Gambit, the King's Indian, and that guy needs to move. He needs to move so that the bishop on e3 gets some squares, and that the rook gets the squares. The whole dream of Federico is to develop the rook on f1, right? To have him be developed where he is.
So yeah, taking this would not be a good idea. What would be the move that White should play here? Arko Prabha says e5 here in this position.
Right, and I assume Black will play knight d7.
And generally, like in these positions, if you can get something like knight a4 and c4, that would be very nice for White.
Right, I'm not even close to getting that. Right?
Yeah.
Not even close. It's funny actually looking at it again, because there's, just on a visual basis, it looks like White is in huge trouble, doesn't it? It looks like, oh my God, what have you done, Kraai? Look at that position.
Yeah. I'm myself. I'm trying to think what should White do. I haven't seen the move, so I mean, I guess you have to move either your knight or your bishop. That seems like what you should be doing. But then maybe you are in an aggressive mood and looking at something else.
Well, the thing that we should say is if I just hang out, Black will be better probably winning. I have to do something because I'm getting murdered. Look at those beautiful center pawns that he has. There's no doubt he has a huge asset. The problem is his king. He has one problem, and if he gets just one tempo, well, then I'm cooked. There's no way I'm breaking through.
Absolutely. F5 is one what chess meme says. I don't believe F5 could work here. I mean, apart from the fact that d4 has to be calculated, but okay, d4 you can calculate like f takes e6, f e6, and something on those lines, queen h5 check, and
right,
moving in. But f5, knight takes e5 is also a move there.
Right. So let me ask you a question while let me be the interviewer for a second.
Sure.
So, you were in 2009, I'm going to say you were like, what, 16 or 17 or something like that?
19.
You were young.
19, yeah.
19, right. And then for several years, you were like you are just improving chess? Is that how, or did you go to school as well at that
Yeah, no,
time
I
after?
completed my education, but
Uh-huh.
till 27 years, till I was 27, I played chess competitively. From the age of 22 to 27, I finished my education when I was 22. So five
Uh-huh.
years, I was just completely focused on chess. Of course,
Nice.
in the last 1 year, Chess Base India began like in 2016. So but
Right.
from 2000, uh, you can say 12 to 16 was just completely dedicated to chess.
So you right now are around the age at which I was really trying to become a GM.
Yes, exactly. And one
Uh,
of the reasons I want to also get inspired, like how are you able to always keep these aims? Like I myself want to become a GM.
uh-huh.
I have two GM norms and I have a rating of around 2400 plus. But it's
Hmm.
always like there are other things to do which kind of bog me down, and when I see the focus with which you follow your aims and what you want to achieve, it's inspiring.
Well, that's good to hear. Yeah, yeah. And as a chess coach, I think one of the things that's really interesting to me is whether you are, 1200, 1800, 2400. It's a huge personal struggle to make improvement, especially after, you've probably been 2400 for a while, so to reach the next level, yeah, it would require a lot of work and dedication. And to me, as a fan, I just think it's just fun and interesting, whether you're right, regardless of whatever your level is, to watch people go through that process, especially because I know that there's going to be moments of extreme disappointment, and like trial and tribulation. So that, yeah, that's where it turns interesting,
Yeah,
turns really yeah, psychological too.
true, true.
Blindfold Chess GM Sagar Shagar in 2024. Yeah.
No, the very fact of trying something and failing at it miserably is also something that scares you off. Yeah, like you go to a tournament, you spend a lot of time preparing for it, and then I mean, you need to make a long-term plan. It can't be like you just make that. Oh, I'll go to the next 5 events and finish my GM title, or whatever it is
Right.
for those who want to improve. I think the focus cannot be that.
Right. So, but now I guess you are full, you're just full, you feel like you're just so full time at doing what you're doing
Yes.
that you don't have time for anything
I
else.
mean, I can make time. I can take out things. It's just that I need to prioritize that.
Right. No, I totally get it. And, now, I do have this dream of playing decent chess at the senior level. And I do stuff like I've been last couple of weeks, I've been waking up in the morning and doing this calculation book, for example, because I'm done with analyzing my games. It's actually a very interesting moment, right? Because I'm done analyzing my games. So now I can read all these books and I have time to do other things. Um, but right, I've got a family. We're working with this. We're doing some videos with Chess Dojo and some streaming on Twitch with the Chess Dojo. So that's like a whole bunch of time that gets sucked into. And I know you're doing loads of things too.
Yeah.
In particular, transcribing all those nasty handwritten notes that I did.
Well, that was to for my aim to improve at chess. I was just trying to understand how you do it.
Right, right.
But yeah, I mean, when you sit down to work on calculation and something else comes up, it's like you spent a lot of time
Right.
in that sense, and I think it's very important to be disciplined in that front.
And one thing too that I'll say for myself is whether make my chess goals or not. One thing I know about myself is I can't really quit chess. It's impossible. I've tried to kind of not take quit, but take a break before it. I never really was able to. And also that there's kind of this very interesting spiritual quality about studying. It's just a beautiful thing to do. Um, So whether it's problems or going over my own games, especially when it's really kind of hard work and I'm going deep into position, it feels very meditative, and I get more out of it than just becoming like a better chess player.
Yeah.
It's more than that for me.
Well, we had some answers here to this
Mm-hmm.
question, and someone wrote a very detailed line. Araz Lamasu, who says F5, knight e5, fe6, fe6, bishop f4, bishop d6, bishop e5, bishop e5, queen h5. But I guess it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't end there. Yeah, like maybe queen h5, g6 could be possible there.
Exactly, right. Mm-hmm. But let's say that is kind of really what white has to be thinking of.
Yeah, because
It
this
F5.
doesn't look like appetizing. Yeah, I mean, after a point, I mean, of course, c4 just traps the bishop. Uh, Also, moving this bishop away, I don't know.
Yeah,
Just
even if c4 wasn't possible there, even if he just had to play bishop e7, aren't I just doing terrible? Right? I'm just doing terrible because he's got the long-term trend is all blacks. He's got all the pawns. This one actually, in terms of calculation, is interesting because, I do end up coming up with some interesting tactical ideas. But in hindsight, I guess I have to just play f5. There's no other move. I gotta do it.
yeah. So you made this move, but
Hmm.
did you see it like many moves ahead?
I saw it when I played King H1, yeah.
Oh, okay.
But it's not like I knew exactly what the evaluation was. I just knew that I had to go down this road, and also that it would be unpleasant for my opponent. Right. That's the whole thing with the Sicilian. When you're playing against a GM, they're not going to just let you win. They're going to try to mate you. I played the Sicilian for a while there. God, you play these strong GMs as white and who are playing against you as a Sicilian, they're going to come at you, and they're going to come at you with like powerful attacking ideas that are very unpleasant. Yeah. And basically now after F5, well, besides my rook on A1, everybody's involved.
Yeah.
Some level, they're all involved, even if it seems like they're all hanging.
So here, I mean, d4 is one move, knight e5 is another, and e takes f5. Maybe these three are the main consideration.
Right. Mm-hmm.
But okay, this looks maybe the most critical. It wins a piece.
Right, and I think there after d4, we would play fe,
Check, maybe.
fe, queen h5 check.
Yeah, I guess king d8 is the only move here.
But now, if king d8, bishop g5 will end the game, right?
Yep, this is game over. And if g6, then you just take. Oops, sorry, take.
Yeah, I'm assuming on g6, bishop g6 is too much.
Yeah, and this is.
And again, bishop g5 still comes. End of the game, yeah. End of the game. If bishop e7, we at the very least we could take and play queen g7.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
So one thing we did recently that was kind of fun is reminding me, I'm reminded of in this game, is we do these, on Chess Dojo, we do these like talks, and we had GM Eugene Perelstein on. We kind of like talked about the different training methods, and this, that we had, like, for example, the school of calculation. We called another one the Agard school, which is like or the Dvoretsky school is a similar thing where you have certain examples and then you kind of play through it as if you're practicing a free throw or something like that. Another one that was kind of interesting that I want to think more about is we call chess culture. It's a little bit harder to define. Um, but with attacking players in particular, there's a kind of culture of the attack of how you put your pieces and what you believe in. And for me, right, I wouldn't have been able to play this way if I hadn't studied with Josh, where before I thought you needed to calculate everything out. And just by studying with the guy, I knew that he wasn't calculating everything out because it's not possible. It's not possible. And in fact, if you're going to play this position as white, you're going to want to play these moves. You don't want to spend forever on these moves because you know that there's going to be some deep calculation that you're going to have to do later.
Yeah.
Right. There's going to be some big moments. Like you said, black has several moves to think about. And honestly, I think the only one that I had to make sure that it didn't work was D4 in that line that we just gave. I think the rest I don't need to worry about too much. For example, with knight e5, I think someone gave the line fe, bishop f4. And in that case, at the very minimum, I've opened up the rook. It's difficult for black to castle. I'm only a pawn down.
Yeah.
I'm only a pawn down here. Yeah.
Yeah, but still, I mean, after bishop d6, it seems like if you don't find something here and he can just castle,
right,
he would be much better.
Well, I believe this is the position that we can let people think about right now, right? Because this is what happened in the game. And the hint I'm going to give is one thing I definitely got from studying my own games is something that you hear from other strong players as well, which is that you have to focus on your worst piece. And what Sicilian players love to do is they love to dominate the knight on c3. And my knight on c3 is truly my worst piece here. So I need to, if I'm going to get something out of this position, I need to make the knight on c3 do work. Because at the moment, he feels kind of dominated right now.
So here it's white to play and you have to find a move. What should white play here?
Sagar, let me ask you a couple other questions. I'm kind of interested. So you're doing this chess-based India.
Yes.
Loads of very strong Indian kids right now. I can't even keep track of them all. So give me who are the kids I need to be watching right now? The Indian kids.
You have to be watching Nihal Sarin. Very strong, very talented. Pragnananda, of course. These two are 2600 plus, and it's quite unfortunate that they kind of lost this year. Because of COVID, they couldn't play tournaments, but both had reached 2600 plus when they were 14 and 15 respectively. 15 for Nihal Sarin, 14 for Pragnananda. So these two. Then there's this boy, Ronak Sadhwani, who is 14 years old, who is 2550. And there's this another kid called Arjun Erigesi, who is 16 years old and 2570. And then there's Gukesh, who became the second youngest GM in the world, who is 2550 and around 14.
Nice.
And then I think these 5 are 2550 plus.
Right.
And very strong. So they have not even crossed 16 years of age, and they are all moving towards 2600 mark.
That was a good list. You just wailed it off like, oh yeah, you've been watching these kids.
No, there was this camp in early January in Chennai where Kramnik and Gelfand came to train, and they trained 14 Indian youngsters. And Nihal wasn't there, but the rest 4 of them were present. And then there are few more. There are more GMs, Inian, Prithu Gupta. Then there are some IMs who are 2480, 2490, who are 14. There are also 12-year-old kids who are IMs around 24-50. So actually, the thing is, Indian chess right now has at least 20 odd kids who are very strong, around 24
Mm-hmm.
50 plus, and between the range of 12 to 12 to 17 or 18 years old.
Yeah, it's strong, man. Really strong.
Yeah, and
Very strong.
I mean, when you see these guys, you know, at close quarters, you realize that they just love chess a lot. Like they wouldn't do anything else apart from chess. I think that makes it quite easy for them to improve at it.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah,
they
yeah.
don't pay too much attention to their education as such. I mean, of course, they all go to schools, but chess is the priority for them.
Yeah, it's really interesting. All these, it's a totally new generation. And I think one of the fascinating things that's happened in my lifetime has just been like when I was a kid, all the top players were Russians and Europeans, and the US had a couple players, but like back in the day, Yasser was like our top player, and he was, in the top 10 for just a little bit, you know. So we didn't have anyone super strong. And then now the chess world has gotten so much bigger, right? So much bigger with China, with India, and of course all those other little countries in South Asia have strong players too. So right, it's just remarkable when you list off all those names of talent, right? How big the chess world is, how many people are playing.
Yeah.
So much different just in my lifetime, how things have
True,
changed.
true. And also US is doing very well, yeah. Like you have Sam
Absolutely.
Savian,
Yeah.
you have Ziyong, uh,
Uh-huh.
and there is Christopher Yu. I think overall, even US chess looks very, very good. I mean, all set to have some.
Oh, absolutely. We have this kid named Fabiano. He's really strong. We got loads of people now.
Well,
Yeah, we got loads of people.
you can't call him a kid though.
Oh, and you're as old as me. Yeah, you could call him a kid. It's funny, actually. It's funny of the question of the kid, right? Because now, also another thing that's changed in my lifetime is the age of top chess players has dramatically
Mm.
changed. There are very few people over 2,700 now who are over 40, right? Vishy is like the one amazing exception of somebody who's continuing to play at, today's modern level, who is older. Um, in any case, what I was trying to say is, uh, Fabi is going on, late 20s now. And kind of like, I think you're a person's chance to make world champion. It's like right now,
Yeah,
once you get in your 30s, I think it's really rough. Like Naka's already,
yeah.
I think, past
Yeah,
it,
yeah. No, I
even though
don't.
he's
I
still
don't think he's
young.
also thinking seriously about it because, okay, he missed the candidates this time, and also if
Right.
you look at MVL or, I think they consider this to be the critical chance for them. Like
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
also I think there's
Yeah.
this one boy in US who's Abhimanyu, who is from an Indian origin, Abhimanyu Mishra, who's an
Uh-huh.
IM,
Oh, yeah,
who became an IM at the age of, who beat Pragnananda's record at 10 years, and he did it
yeah.
when he was
Yeah.
10 years and 9 months. So, that sense,
That kid's really
there
good.
are so many but somehow it's like uh, Indians are doing it at this young age. I mean, at a very young age, but the important thing is to reach that highest level, which only Vishy has managed to do in a way. So
Right, right.
it's important for them to break through.
Absolutely. Yeah.
A lot of people in the chat mentioned this move bishop b5, which actually, to tell you the truth, I did not, it didn't come as the first move in the mind.
Right. Well, right. That's what I did. Bishop B5. Check.
I mean, there are so many options. Yeah, like now the king can go to e7, d8. Of course, you don't want to go to the f file because then it's, and then you have to calculate this and this. So you have to calculate.
And knight d7
Ah, yeah,
and
knight
bishop
d7.
c6.
Yeah, and bishop.
Let's put king on e7 on the board just because it's beautiful. Let's put king e7 on
Yes.
the board. Of course, he wouldn't have played king e7, but king e7 is just nice to look at with bishop g5. I think it's mate. It looks like
Yeah,
mate.
it's checkmate. Yes.
Yeah. Kind of an odd position.
And king d8.
King d8's a good question. Now, one cool thing about being white in this position is king d8 is so, the king will have, even if I don't find anything here, right? Even if I don't find anything here, the king is on such a hard road now. You know, even if I played something, you know, dumb like bishop d3 or whatever, the king won't have any safety coming up here. Yeah, so this looks terrible, but I don't know. I can't even remember what I would have done after king d8.
I'm just trying
Yeah,
to
it
think
just-
if knight e4 works here.
Good. That's exactly, I think, the kind of thing I want to be looking for is knight e4, and I think that would be my first candidate move.
Yeah, because if you take on b5, then knight d6, queen d6, and can we play something like queen e2 here?
For example, yeah, that looks good.
And with this opposite color bishops, it becomes even more difficult for black to defend here.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that. A lot of people have trouble understanding how powerful the opposite color bishops are. Basically, the initiative in this position is going to be important anyway, but with the opposite color bishops, I'll have, you know, I will own the dark squares, and if I get the initiative on the dark squares, well, it'll just mean that I'm basically up a piece on that color.
Yeah. So ne4 actually looks very strong because you can't take it. You lose. Bishop takes e5.
Right.
And yeah, so king d8 doesn't work. So yeah, you kind of brought it down to now bishop c6.
And I think knight d7.
And yeah, knight d7. Yeah. Okay, bishop c6. Let's see. Okay, bishop c6 doesn't work. Yeah, because you take on e5. Take on e5.
Right, and then
Take here.
good.
Take and check. Yeah.
Right.
So knight d7 remains. I guess I'll leave it up to the viewers to try and crack this one. Knight. How do you crack knight d7? What should white play? By the way, Molai Patra says, I watched Krai's Tal Botvinnik 1950 playlist. It's awesome. I think 1960, yeah?
That's right.
Thank you, Sagar, also. You both taught me a lot and completely free of cost. I guess you analyzed Tal Botvinnik games for your book, Lisa. Also.
A little bit. That's true. That's also true. Yeah. Yeah, I want to do more of things like that. I want to do more videos of games and stuff. And, you know, one thing we were talking about before we went on air between me and Sagar is that, you know, back when I first started talking to him, it's hard to believe, but, you know, you couldn't just go on video. So the stuff that I was doing,
it was only
like,
audio.
back then,
I didn't know how
it was just
I didn't know how
audio.
you looked or anything. It's
That's
just your
right.
voice, which was so nice.
Yeah. And then we just had the board moving. And the audio, I remember, was bad too. The audio was not great.
Yeah.
It's just how things have evolved since then.
But tell me something, like when you do such videos and when you do it on your channel or something like this, do views matter to you? How many people watch it and stuff like that? Like, let's say if there are, say, 200 people watching it, or if there are 300, and let's say you want more people to watch, does it diminish your enthusiasm to do things? How is it for you?
Of course, everybody wants views. It's nice on a variety of levels. Um, I think everybody's dreaming of doing what you're doing, Shagar. You've got it made. You're doing this beautiful content and you work really hard at it. And, you're creating a product that people can enjoy. So I think that's the dream for myself anyway. And I think a lot of other people as well, is they just want to have the freedom and time to be able to do this kind of work. Um, so yeah, no, I would love to get more views and all that. And we started the chess dojo. We started that. It's a pretty recent project, really. We haven't been going on it for that long. So a lot of people don't even know about it. And I'm trying to do one good video a week, basically. Sometimes more. Sometimes I don't get around to it, but I just try to do one a week. And mostly I try to talk about whatever I'm currently studying, So for example, one of the reasons I enjoy studying is just then I can try to express it verbally to the world. And I think too, one reason I think you could become GM is you are actually learning things when you're talking to these other players and analyzing and doing crazy things like writing down the transcription of the analysis that I did. Yeah, you're learning things. And just one cool thing about chess is that if you are forced to verbally, to put into words what you think is going on in a position, well, that's good chess practice. That will help you.
I do
Um,
think about it, and I believe that I have grown stronger in terms of knowledge. Like, if, say, I have a
mhm.
doubt in a certain position, and if I'm at a top event, and I can interview the top player and ask him what I was thinking. Like, for example, let's say if it's a position, and I can ask Anish Giri, I felt this was the move. Why did you play so and so? And when he responds it, I'm improving my intuition and understanding. But I guess
Right.
training for your own chess is much different from just building up your intuitive. Like, you need to polish your skills as well at some level, and that that
Absolutely. Yeah.
does. I mean, if you have knowledge, I don't think that's enough. Uh,
hmm I agree with you. Like, actually, one criticism that was leveled at me that I think is interesting is, I was doing commentary for, it was like last year in St. Louis. I was in commentary. It was like the U.S. senior, the U.S. junior. Anyways, and the U.S. women were going on all at the same time, and you know, GM Ray Robeson was there, and he's a mad calculating machine. And he was talking about me doing commentary, and he was like, "Yeah, I noticed you don't really do that many variations." And it's totally true. When you're doing stuff like commentary, what you're going to do is you will have a tendency to, because you can't spend forever on a position. And so you're just going to give your first intuitive assessment. And honestly, we began the show talking about how chess is interesting because you get like a recursive, something comes back to you about whether you were right or wrong. But in the commentary world, generally, it doesn't, there's no truth at stake. You're just giving your opinion. And that's when people can become overconfident and arrogant, right? And superficial,
yes.
because you just think that you know something when in fact you're just saying all kinds of crazy things. I don't know what you're saying. And right. So, anyways, to uh, put into words what I think you said just now is that if you're going to do commentary and all this other stuff, you can improve your chess, but it has to be grounded in some kind of other study, like doing calculation work and looking at your own games, work that's
Yes.
difficult, because the commentary work is generally just kind of fun. It's just a fun
Yeah,
thing to
yeah,
do.
I agree with you on the superficiality part. I don't think arrogant or overconfident is an issue for me, because I know that I don't know much things, but I do understand that at times you become superficial. Like, here, you say you sometimes look at the engine because you have to give your
Mm,
assessments quickly, and you're like, okay, this is winning.
right,
But in an actual game, you still have to find the next move here for white, and that's
right.
what could be very difficult. Bishop d6, queen d6, knight e4 is one suggestion that we have here.
That's what I did.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's
that's
what
what
you.
I
Oh,
did.
that's what happened in the game. Okay.
Yeah.
There was also another suggestion, which was queen g4 here. Uh, that's what people said. But yeah, queen g4 looks promising, says Ernst Horst.
It's possible, but then I would worry about castles long. You know, I don't know if I have anything after castles long.
Yeah. So here you took. Ah, okay. So this is the only possible move here. Yeah, I mean, I'm just checking. Knight c6.
Knight c6 might be a thought. At the minimum, there's a lot of things that I have here, though, including bishop d6, knight e4 again.
Yeah.
Knight d5 might be a thought. You know, yeah, there's a lot of things going on here with after knight c6.
Takes, and yeah, maybe even this move could be possible.
Maybe.
So you took, queen takes, and knight e4. And queen e7.
Right. Kind of forced. And, you know, yeah, studying with Josh, I was able to become comfortable with chaos. You know, so I've got two pieces hanging. And now I'm going to put a third piece, at least visually, on pretty.
But I see,
Right, like
you know,
me.
Jesse, you are playing chaotic chess, but you also have your bailout things. Like, you know, minimally you can always take this guy and you won't be down a piece. So
Right.
it's more like a calculated risk. Yeah, you're not going completely intuitively into it, or
No, and I'd say, I mean, at this point, I was able to
yeah,
calculate, I think, to what happened in the game. I was able to figure it out. But going into it, I had to, I guess I want to say I have a philosophy, a chess philosophy of, how should I put it, of believing in the activity of the pieces. And to get this position, I had to believe that. And then I have to, you know, vigorously now prosecute. You know, I do have to convert it into something at this point. That's right.
so queen h5 looks like an idea. You played it here.
Yeah, I play queen h5, yeah.
And now if king d8, I mean, you have rook f7 perhaps, which...
I got a lot of good moves after king d8, yeah.
So g6 was played.
So g6, yeah.
And now it's actually a critical moment because this is hanging, and this...
Everything's hanging. Everything's hanging.
Yeah. Okay, knight f6 check, but then you have to calculate queen f6 already.
Queen
rook
f6, right.
and g takes h5. Yeah, so you have to move the queen, but where is the question? So guys, what do you play here after g6? You can you go queen e5 attacking h8? Yeah, that's a possibility.
Let me tell you a funny joke that I was thinking of recently. So, I recently was remembering, I misremembered a game. And I thought that I had played in this one game. This was like ages ago. And I thought my opponent was Svyagintsev, S-V-A, and then with these crazy Russian names, S-V-J, you know, A Gintsev. And then, in fact, I looked in the database, and the guy's name was Ovseyevich. So we had a V, a J, and a Z
Yeah.
in there as well. And then I thought it was so hilarious that how I misremembered that. And I said to myself, my first thought was, you know what? There's some guy in India who has played Jacob Agard with all those A's, and he thinks it's me because I got the A's too. The same kind of thing. For a foreign speaker, it's like, oh yeah, those got to be the same guy.
Yeah. I mean, no one could pronounce his name right when he came to India. Everyone called him
Yeah.
Agard and sort of this, but it's actually
Yeah.
Oh God.
Oh, I would have gotten
Yeah.
that wrong too. That's honestly my own name. I pronounce technically wrong because I'm in America. It's a Dutch name, and I think my name is actually something more like Kraai, but
Kraai.
no one says it.
Ah.
And I don't say it.
Okay.
Yeah. So Queen E5. You're right.
Yeah,
That's the
how
move.
you continued. You attack the rook here, and I think he has to move the rook or maybe even long castle. But long castle
He's-
knight d6 check is a problem.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. But I think that's the only move.
Okay, rook f8. Then I guess you can.
I could probably assume I can play knight f6 or knight d6 after
Ah,
rook
this
f8.
is just. Oh, this is very strong. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Or even this.
The knight f6 looks the clearest. Rook takes and then bishop d7 check.
Knight f6, rook takes, bishop d7, and yeah, whatever. It's just exchange up and completely winning. So he went here. Now you gave a check, and I think he has to go to b8 because if king
Right.
c7.
Some kind of knight e8 thing is going to happen to him then. He's going to get mated. I'm assuming queen c7 is mated.
Yeah, queen c7, and now knight d6 maybe. Yeah.
That looks good to me. That looks good to
And
me.
then
Yeah,
bishop
knight
c6
d6 looks
may
good.
also come in. Yeah, this looks.
And rook f7 too,
Exactly.
yeah.
So king b8 was played, and now I guess this is like a problem of plenty. There could be several ways to win, but you had to find the way which.
I don't think I didn't see more than one way here. And now it's actually interesting. We are now going to go into an ending where I'm going to be probably technically winning, but I still have to win. And I think a younger version of myself would have maybe had trouble with this kind of ending, where this is actually, I feel one of the nice things about this game is I'm not a natural attacking player, but the end game that we now get, I feel like that is something I'm reasonable at. I'm reasonable at playing the kind of ending positions we're going to get. But even then, it was still he fought well in the coming ending, and I still had to win the game. So that's part of,
Is your endgame really good because you analyze so many games of Smyslow?
Maybe I also just enjoy it. I think I enjoy the endgame a lot. But that definitely helped. And with the Smyslov games, what that book turned me on to is that when people think about playing endings well, they think about how do you do certain things well. They think about, how do I mate with a bishop and knight, or how do I do the Philidor position, or these kinds of things, which is definitely important. But mostly what's going on in endgame play is some deep thinking about the value of the pieces and activity. How do you make small improving moves? How do you play maneuvering endings? How do you try to win from an equal position, or just play maybe a slightly worse position? And then, of course, those are all kinds of things that actually are happen far more often in endings that like books like the Dvoretsky Manual just aren't going to teach you. You know, you're not going to learn that kind of thing from books like that. So, anyways, yeah, that's what I got out of it, and I think it's maybe not even true that I'm that good at the endings, but rather everybody else is very bad at them. Everybody else, because people don't, yeah, they don't think about the endings that much. And a lot of the younger kids, too, ones that I've taught as well, seem to think that the end games they're all equal or something, or you know that they're somehow easy to understand. Uh, but no, very difficult to play.
Yeah, yeah.
You just got raided.
Oh, I
You got
we
raided.
got raided by Vidit, who has been streaming, and Vidit is one of the most popular streamers in India right now. He
Uh-huh.
has so many
Cool.
people following him, and he does all kinds of cool things. He plays blindfolded. He plays blitz. He plays his
Yeah.
even some of the serious events. He plays while streaming. Recently, he beat Caruana and a lot of Swidler and everyone while he was streaming. So thank you so much, Vidit, for raiding. And guys, all those who came from there, stay back to learn from whom I consider one of the most prolific chess teachers of the modern era. You know, he is able to say what he thinks in such a nice way and doesn't come as a surprise because he has a PhD in literature, Jesse Kraai. So please stay back, yeah, to learn from him.
Um, so he's like the Nakamura of the Indian chess scene, huh? He's got it going on with all the followers. That's
Yeah, yeah,
great.
he's there, and also, I mean, India has several other streamers as well. There's Adiban who's streaming recently. There's also Surya
Mm-hmm.
Ganguly. There's also
Yeah.
there's a very famous stand-up comedian named Samay. Have
Uh-huh.
you heard of him before?
No, I don't
He
know
is
him.
Samay,
Yeah.
and he has a huge fan. So he started streaming in the lockdown, and he decided to
Uh-huh.
stream chess instead of PUBG or any other game. And
Okay.
he has close to 500,000 followers in last three
Wow.
months or 4 months. You know, so
Cool. I'll look him
yeah,
up.
yeah,
Yeah.
he's. So that's how, I mean, chess in India is booming right now on online, also because of the streaming and a lot of things that
Right.
are happening in that sense.
Because of you. You were the man.
Okay.
You were the one who made it happen. You were before all these other streamers.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
So you're attacking the queen. I mean, Benjamin is attacking the queen. So you decided to
Yeah.
just take it.
Yeah, now we're going to enter the next phase of the game where I have to play the ending. And right, I'm going to win the exchange, but he's going to have a pawn. And my king is not going to be, you know, his king is going to go from zero to hero now because his king is going to be much closer to the center and more dynamic than my king.
Yeah.
That's
And
right.
he can't take here because the rook is hanging. So he
Right.
had to take with the queen. And now check. Queen c7. And does it bother you, as you said, yeah, like a younger self of you would have had difficulty because you couldn't finish him off in the attack, and now you have some technical work to do.
Right. Um, how do when you say it would bother me, how do you
Yeah,
mean it?
like, I mean, you try to find a finishing stroke, but you can't find it. Now you have to play an end game. But I
Oh, right,
guess
right, right. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
now I think when you were playing this game, you could manage it quite well. Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's a thing right to say about when thinking about the endings is this many people lack confidence in the ending because they don't really have a sense of how it should be played. And if you lack confidence, right, you would come to this and say, "Oh, I had such a nice game before. Now I don't know if I'm going to win it and maybe I'll blow it." And it's such a, like, this is where Capablanca and the old timers would say that the ending is the basis of your game, because this is the kind of position you were going to have to win. Because especially when you're playing a GM like Benjamin, what they'll do is, if they get a bad position, they will bail out into an ending like this. He was the one who found the thin line to just get here, right? He was, that's what they're going to do. That's what all the GMs are going to do in a position like this, is they're going to try to make you at least work in the ending. And there are practical I want to say, I believe this position is winning for white, but there are definitely practical chances here for black.
Yeah, yeah.
Those pawns are still beautiful. They've been beautiful for a long time, but they're still beautiful here.
But you got in the check, so no point in
Yeah.
exchanging the rooks here, because
Right.
this would be quite an easy win for you with the rooks off the board. So he
Right.
played king b6.
A good rule of thumb actually is that in these positions, the bishop needs the rook because the rook can control the dark squares. And my rooks do, in a lot of ways, the same thing, right? Whereas the rook and the bishop do different things. They're complementary.
Yeah, yeah. So it would be very nice if you can exchange a pair of rooks here as white.
Absolutely. If I could exchange, that would be great if I could exchange a rook.
So here, I think, again, your move. What should white play? I guess it's a good moment to ask the viewers. It's a pretty simple move, but still, I guess it's important to get your last piece into the game, yeah?
Right. Yeah, that's the guy. He's been sitting there. He's been sitting there for a while, Shagar. He doesn't know he needs to get in.
Okay, so white to play, and Curious Mota, thank you so much for your super chat. He's written something in Gujarati, which is my mother tongue, and he says, Sagar bhai, tame to foundation show. Sagar, thank you, Curious, and Varun Deshpande, thank you, Sagar, for all the great streams. Thank you, Varun. Thank you so much. Yeah, now.
Shagar, how many languages do you speak?
I speak four. Four very well: English, Hindi, Gujarati, and Marathi. So, Hindi is our sort of official language of India, one of the official languages. So,
Right,
I know
sure.
Hindi. Gujarati is my mother tongue. I was like at home when I was born, everyone spoke in Gujarati, and Marathi is my wife's language, so I know that.
Oh,
And English is what I learnt at school. So those are four, and I know German because I learnt it in college. And now it helps me because Chessbase is a German company. So, and I also know that you have German connection as well. You studied in Germany for your PhD.
For my PhD, yeah. Yeah, that's cool. I didn't know you knew. I didn't know that you knew German. And you're right. You have to deal with those German guys all the time.
Yeah, but okay, I speak in English. Ich kann Deutsch sprechen, aber nicht gut. I don't know if you also, do you know German, or I guess you would.
Oh yeah, no, I lived there for 5 years, and you were talking about personal struggles that I went through. I living there, and I had to do everything in German too. And there's a lot of, when you do something like a PhD, one of the ways in which it is not like chess is you are going to have to do a lot of bureaucratical things. You're going to have to get certain people to sign certain pieces of paper. You're going to have to navigate this whole labyrinthian bureaucratic system, which I'm sure it's the same in India too, if you're doing some academic stuff, anyways, right. So my German had to be reasonable to get through all that.
Amazing. Okay, so everyone said there were two moves that were suggested. One was rook e1 and other one was rook f1.
Right. And, I'm sure there's other moves too. You could consider rook h7. I think that's definitely a thought. And let's just say the big issue going forward is black is going to strive to get vicious counterplay with d4, c4, and then pushing everybody forward. And one thing actually it's interesting about going over your own games is one thing I've learned from going over your own games is, especially at this stage when both players are both tired and in a little bit of time pressure, you going over your games will teach you that, oh, both sides will make mistakes. There's no question about it. Both sides are going to make mistakes, and that's having that in the back of your mind. You're going to realize you want to be as clear as possible. You don't want complexity. You want to make it as simple as possible for yourself in a position like this.
True. So rook e1, attacking this makes a lot of sense here.
Right.
Develops a piece. He defended it. By the way, there's one message that we got from Shivangi Tripathi, and I agree with it. It says, GM Jesse Kraai is such a cool guy, and the way he speaks is mesmerizing. Yeah, I want to know, like, the way you speak about chess with such calmness, and, you know, like, as if I could hear it for hours together. Was it something that you do it only in chess, or is it in normal terms also you speak similarly?
That's an interesting question. I think well, you know, you, for example, speak 4 different languages, and I'm sure you speak those in different circumstances. And I guess I would say that when I speak about things that I've thought about, I've just learned that they're difficult, and I am trying to think slow, and I'm also trying to think slow. Of course, you know, if you catch me watching a soccer match or whatever, I'm not going to be speaking like this. I'm going to be shouting and screaming just like your common beer drinking prole. You know, I'm going to be a totally different person. So I don't always think this way or speak this way. But it's not something I really developed. I think it's just, or, you know, consciously thought about, but just something that comes naturally, I think, with studying and thinking, you know, deeply about chess or whatever it is, you know, whatever it is. I would love actually, you know, at some point to do more than just chess, to talk about philosophy and other things as well. So hopefully, maybe I can use my voice in that kind of way too.
Of course, I would. That would be amazing if you do that. Coming back to the game, rook takes. You took the pawn, and he pushed. And I think here is where people go wrong. You know, like when I see a lot of chess players, they say I was winning a game and then I lost it, and they don't know exactly where, and they are not able to exactly understand how to convert such a better position. Right.
We got a question in the chat. Which is Jesse's favorite soccer team? I like a lot of Americans. We didn't have a great soccer player for the longest time, and U.S. soccer is finally football coming into being, and so Christian Pulisic is now playing for Chelsea, and that's how I got into Chelsea. So now I'm all in. I'm all in on Chelsea, man. That's my soccer team.
Okay.
Oh, Arsenal's no good, Keith. It's no good. You guys can't play. Do you have a soccer team?
Well, I don't follow it so much. I don't enjoy soccer so much. But I mean, I never followed it. But, you know, recently I was watching this series on Netflix about Playbook. These are all coaches of different sports, and one of them was this guy Jose Mourinho.
Jose Mourinho, yeah.
And he was, I think, the coach of Chelsea for some time.
That's right.
I really liked the way he was, you know, working with the team and the way he spoke in that. And I think I don't have too much depth about it, but I believe it's these players, the characters who make the sport very interesting. Like he's just as a coach, he's like so confident about it. I would say to an extent arrogant about the way
Uh-huh.
behaves. And
And I think that's actually a lesson for chess, right? It's like we are talking, you listed off all these Indian streamers who are doing stuff right
yeah,
now. And the same thing's going on in the United States, where fans are able to see who these people are and not just like their moves. It turns into a much more human and interesting affair where you can also just see their struggles. There's how hard it is for them to make progress. It's a very interesting, much more interesting, um, as a fan, to be a part of. And for, I mean, to me as well, I'm a chess fan as much as I am a player or anything else.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
By the way, a question was
Yep.
why didn't
Yeah.
White play Rook F6 here in the previous move?
That was a thought. And then I won't win the H pawn, and black can play. The advantage of rook F6 would be then I would force black to play bishop C8 where he's not as comfortable. And the difference, the decision with rook H7 is very committal because it means that we're going to be engaged in a race,
Yeah.
right? He is going to race with his central pawns, and I am going to race with the H and G pawns. And already here, just from doing endgame studies and the like, I knew that what was probably going to happen is I would have to sacrifice my rook at some point for one of those pawns going forward. Not only do I have to stop those pawns, but his king is actually very violent in terms of coming potentially up the board.
True.
Yeah, so this is it's still, even though, the computer might say it's winning or whatever, it's still a very frightening situation.
Yeah, yeah. And you try to take care of it with this move B3, and I think it makes sense to slow him down.
And we should say with V3, the scary part is now the black king has a simple route to come in, via either A3 or C3.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's still remarkably scary. And thankfully for me, he owes me one more tempo before he can launch that because his bishop on B7 is hanging still.
Yeah, so he tried to save his bishop first, so now he's planning to get in. And you went rook G7.
It's funny, even after all these years, this is still a scary position for me to look at. It's just like he's still got counterplay.
Yeah, true. I mean, yeah, you would like to win this pawn and then just start pushing this guy, down the board. That's the plan.
And the rook on H7 wants to come back and help with the defense too, with a move like rook G3, to keep that dirty king out of C3, for example.
Right. So he went ahead. There was no way to save the pawn, so you took king b4, and now instead of cutting his king off, you went h4. I believe this is where in your analysis, you would have spent time analyzing rook g3 quite a bit.
Absolutely, yeah. And the bummer for him is his rook and bishop aren't really that well placed to deal with that advancing h pawn. So he has his own troubles in terms of getting back to the position. I think the good news is rook g3 might also be winning, but the good news is on king c3, if I play rook e2, I still have things like rook g3 coming. So it's not something that I've given up on just because I played h4.
So h4, he went rook
d7. h4 also is psychologically nice because now I can't get mated on the back rank.
True. So h4, rook d7, he went h5. Now rook h7, h6, and a good thing is that the pawn is very far advanced, but now the rook is tied up, so now it cannot really join back in the defense as such. So he entered in. Rook e2.
One of the things fun about this analysis is as chess fans, we're more drawn to the fancy positions, right? Where, like we looked at earlier with sacrifices and stuff. But we could tell, like this is still really
Yes,
intense,
absolutely.
right?
Absolutely.
There's all kinds of stuff
Yeah.
still happening here.
For me, this is very exciting because this is where you usually mess up against a strong player. I mean, especially
Right.
for me, and I really like it when you can finish it off very cleanly. Like it just feels good if you are able to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And here, I think
Right.
your opponent played a very interesting move, c4, and his idea is that if you take and take, now the rook has to defend this, and if it moves away, then the e pawn can start rolling down the board.
Right. And let's talk about some of White's just general problems too. My king is poor. It's been poor from the beginning of this ending. And really, I need a couple tempi. I need to buy a couple tempi to get in g4, g5. And the idea is that, and this has been the idea ever since I took on h7, is that if I can achieve g4, g5, then those pawns will be close to as strong as a rook anyway, right? The famous rule that two pawns in the sixth rank are as good as a rook. So that's really the dream that White has going forward here.
True. So here, I mean, you could have also played something like king h2 to start preparing g4, but then d3 might be very strong.
It's at least scary.
Yeah.
It's at least very scary, the d3 move, yeah.
So
Also, the problem that it comes, rook h6 might come with check. That also scares me if I have to do that. You know?
check, and he went king b4 because I guess d3 doesn't work now. Yeah, you take, and rook e3.
Right.
You just lose the pawn. So no, not really. This pawn may be hanging. Not sure. Maybe
A takes. I go g1.
yeah. You're okay with that. Yeah, like king g1 and then pick up this pawn, and you're 2 pawns up.
And his rook on h6 isn't that
I
special
was thinking
either.
if
It's not
you're-
doing that much.
Maybe take and b4. Yeah. I don't know. It seems like too many pawns are getting exchanged.
The game's not over yet. Yeah, I still have to do some
Like
work
b4,
here.
maybe
Yeah.
rook h4. This looks. I mean, slightly worrying. I don't know.
It is. I think White's definitely still winning, but I have some work to do. Yeah. Yeah. And b4 isn't the only move. But here also, in addition to playing rook a3, like there's all kinds of interesting ways I might try to mate him as well with a rook d2, and then he has to go to the first rank. Yeah, that's also unpleasant for him. Yeah, that's also difficult.
King b4.
And like I said, I'm sure mistakes were made on both sides here. After king b4, I definitely felt like my job got easier. I thought your line was at least more scary for what he could do. In addition to what you showed, there was also d3, cd, and c takes b3, which is also potentially scary with the idea of, exchanging those pawns to the queen side and running the a pawn.
Yeah. Also, I mean, maybe just putting in, including rook h6 first, and then maybe cb. Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
And then takes. Yeah, it just seems like this is the kind of position when after you have launched a vicious attack and then you have to do all these technical stuff, it could go wrong. It could go wrong.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, and again, I still believe White's winning, but it's not over yet. It's not,
So he went king b4, and now you played this very nice move, rook h3, defending the pawn, keeping control. He went d3, but I guess he could have got this position by sort of winning that pawn. Now that I look at it, maybe here D3, rook H3 could be better, yeah. A better way to continue.
Oh, actually, yeah. I'm sure that was my intention,
Yeah.
actually. I'm sure that was my intention. That's right.
This, and then you save this pawn, and then you'll take on D3.
Right. And again, the whole idea is that I'm building for some kind of the pawn on G2 is thirsting to join its friend on H6. And once that happens, I'm really close to being able to give up a rook for the pawn.
Yeah.
For any counterplay.
He took on B3, AB3, and he played A5. King H2, I think 40th move, and he took on B3 and resigned the game, maybe because I guess you would go G4.
Right, I'm gonna right, I'm gonna be able to sack the rook if I need it. Once this is the dream. The dream has been achieved. I've connected the pawns.
G5.
And I can sack the E2 pawns.
Yeah, you're way faster, and you can always give up this for this pawn. Amazing. And so you would spend like a lot of time analyzing all these moments in the game, and then you would draw certain conclusions from this game that you have played and try to take care of it next time you play, yeah, in your tournament.
And also just, if anybody analyzes, say, this game or a game that is, let me put it this way, if you analyze a position like this and go deeply into it, you will learn how to play these kinds of positions. You will just develop a skill set for how to analyze them, how to think about them, how to judge them. Like what is a winning position, for example? What do I need to do? And the advantage of doing your own games, you can of course study many games like this of other people's. You could study this game, totally fine. But the advantage of doing your own games is you already have that personal relationship to the game. You had your own psychology and you made the mistakes yourself. Your opponent also made mistakes. And so you have a framework already built in for how to improve from what you did, right? It's not just some random GM or somebody who played the game. You were the one who was the author of the position.
I mean, I'm completely sold with this idea of working on your own games. But there was a point in my life where I felt my games were just pointless, and I would rather look at games by grandmasters, like, let's say, study Mikhail Tal's best games or Alekhines' best games. I don't know when this switch happened, when I started feeling my games are more important, or how it happened. Maybe it was listening to many times you saying it, also other people.
Right.
But how does one convince himself that studying his games or her games are the most important thing to do?
I think, what you just said, like the feeling that your games aren't interesting or not good enough, everybody's going to have that moment. And honestly, ever since I publicly came out, because so I did it myself. Other very strong GMs have also talked about studying their own games as the way to improve. But I did it myself. I realized it was a very difficult process. And then, after you become a GM, especially when you're an old dude like me, people will ask, well, how did you do it? And so I would start telling people to do this. And I will tell you, one of the most interesting things about chess has been how difficult it is for people to analyze their games. We're talking very difficult. Like here's an interesting, maybe, I don't know if this is a suitable comparison, but it's just kind of an interesting comparison. They say that at least in the US, something like 90+% of the population will go on a diet at some point during the year to change their eating. Of those people, less than 1% will be successful. That's kind of a stunning statistic, right? And that's its whole range of difficulty. We could talk forever about why that's difficult, but there's got to be a similar level of difficulty with going over your own games, making a habit of it, because I have told so many people to do it and explained a little bit how to do it. Maybe and Kostya over at Chess Dojo wants me to do a video on it. And I've promised I'll do it. But it's so difficult that none of these people have come back to me and like showed me what they did, or very few. Let me put it that way. It's the success rate is very small. So that's just interesting to me, just how hard it is at a psychological level to confront your own moves and your own mistakes. And I want to publicly admit that there's been periods of my life where I would play tournaments and then not go over my games, even after I knew that it was the right thing to do, because it was so difficult and painful. And the rule that I came up with back in the day, which I really try to still hold, is I'm not allowed to play a tournament until I've covered the games from the previous tournament.
Yes.
Right? That's my
Amazing.
rule. It's it's very hard sometimes too, because you don't necessarily have a lot of time between tournaments. And as you pointed out with like that analysis I did, to do, I don't know, 12, 15 pages of analysis, it's going to take a while.
True,
It's going to
true.
take some time.
But why do you say writing it down with a pen and paper and not, let's say, put it in chess base, or let's say not putting it on? Why would you recommend it using a pen and paper and an actual chess set?
I think there's a variety of reasons for that. From a pedagogical point of view, I think you just learn better on a three-dimensional surface. But also I want to say that from what I'll call a spiritual point of view, I don't get a lot of joy when I'm being in front of the computer, unless I'm talking to you, Sugar. Unless I'm talking to you, I don't feel a sense of fulfillment or joy or even deep thinking. Definitely not deep thinking when I'm in front of the computer. It's just too easy for me to either click on what the engine says or to look at what Twitter says. What does the news say? All these distractions, they're just calling out to me when I'm on the computer. They're saying, Jesse, come look at me for a little bit. Oh, you need a break, Jesse? Come over here for a little bit. And then hours later, nothing got done. And then I have to do whatever needs to happen in my life. The email starts calling to me as well. It's terrible.
But if someone can maintain his focus, and this is the question which I had for myself. Like, I'm also from that school where when I put it on a chessboard and practice, it feels just good. But I realized after seeing all these youngsters that they just do it much better and much faster on a computer screen. And then it becomes more like a personal choice. Yeah, like rather earlier I was like, yeah, you need to put it on a chess set to make. But then when there's so many people who are doing it really well on the computer screen, it just becomes like a
Right.
personal choice. Yeah.
I totally understand that. And there's a great comment here which says pen and paper is the choice of boomers, which I find hilarious. And it is true that the millennials and the kids younger than the millennials are just used to doing everything on the computer. And one of the interesting things that's happened, of course, in the last year is we've made this move to online chess, and it's a different kind of chess. You're playing in front of a screen, and I think it appeals to them a lot more, even just to be in front of the screen than to be in front of a board, Yeah, so it is. If you want to say that that's part of my generation, or people want to say that, I totally understand. And that part of it is true. I don't have any qualms with saying that.
Okay, so the way, like, to sum it up, the way you analyze a game is that you play a game and then you come back, you write down your thoughts about what you felt about the game, and then
Right.
maybe after the event, you kind of go deeper into it, and you start looking at all the possibilities that were in your mind, that you thought about or you didn't consider, and all of these things, and sort of write it down, or you do it the way you want, and then you sort of draw conclusions from that. Yeah, would that be the flow?
Yeah, and the great thing about it is you will what by doing so you will discover secrets of the position that you didn't see, and it's not just some harrowing, dark, awful process, but you will discover the beauty of chess in simple positions. It doesn't You'll realize that the beautiful positions don't just happen in tall games, they happen in your games. You just weren't aware of it. Right? You just weren't aware of it. So yeah, it's this beautiful opportunity chess is a, an interesting and fantastic game, and it's always that way, regardless of whatever level you're playing at. The beautiful positions and the beautiful moves are always right underneath the surface.
Okay, amazing. So Jesse, I would love to have you more often on ChessBase India, but in case people want to, follow you, what you are doing, what would be the best way to stay in touch? I'm sure a lot of people who watch this now or even later when they replay it, they would want to see more
Right.
of you. So where should they go? Is Chess Dojo, is that the place?
Yeah, Chess Dojo, we've got a stream, and I'm doing that with international masters Kostya Kavutsky and David Prus. And we have also guests on as well. And so we have a YouTube channel where we're putting up some videos all the time. And we have a
Hey,
streaming
folks.
on Twitch, which we're doing pretty regularly too. So those are the two places I would say people can
So
go.
there's a Twitch channel as well of your own, and it's called Jesse Kraai, yeah?
That's right. The Twitch, no, the Twitch channel is the
Chess
Chess
Dojo.
Dojo
Chess
channel.
Dojo, and this
Yeah.
is
Hmm.
also here on YouTube. It's called Chess Dojo. I will also subscribe to this.
And then you can see right there, there's the Twitch right there, which you have on the screen. And of course, the Twitter. We have a Patreon page, and we also have a Discord channel where people are really engaged on the Discord channel. A lot of times that's where we organize tournaments and people can talk about stuff and that kind of thing as well.
Amazing, amazing. I think all of you who are here, please follow Jesse. I think following him was one of the best things that happened to me in my chess. And Jesse, I am so glad that today you agreed to come here. For me, it's like
Yeah,
a
yeah, yeah.
fan moment to finally do a stream with you, and I enjoyed it tremendously. Um,
Me too.
and
Yeah.
someday we can look at Smith-Slow games, or what, if ever you decide to analyze something and you are feeling bored or something, please we could do it together, and it would be great fun.
Well, I'll tell you what I'm going to do, and I've been planning this for a long time, is ages ago, you said that I was invited to come visit you in India. And at some point when the kids are a little older, I'm coming. I'm just going to get on the airplane and I'm going to show up at
I
your
would,
door.
I would be more than
We're gonna
happy.
go hang out in India. Yeah, that's good. That's my dream. And yeah, I'd love to play at some Indian tournaments and stuff. Oh, that'd be beautiful. It'd be
I
really fun.
think if you come to India and play here, it would be like a real test of stamina. Also, they say that Indians are slightly underrated, so you will have also quite a strong opposition here. And at the same
Right.
time, I mean, it will be amazing to have you here. And I would finally get to meet you in person. So please do plan that whenever
Yeah,
you
yeah,
can.
yeah.
That would be fantastic.
Right on. I'm going to come for sure. Before it's all over, I'm coming to India.
Okay, Jesse, thank you so much for this, and catch up with you soon.
All right. Thank
Take
you.
care. Bye bye.
Okay. Fun.
Guys, that
Fun
was
stuff.
Jesse here, and please do follow him. And thank you all for being here, being present here, and I'll see you guys tomorrow with some new streams. And till then, take care. Bye bye.